Back. Welcome everyone to Dive into the Mind with Helen and Toni. We are so excited to be back after a little hiatus, and today's discussion episode talk is pretty incredible. We get very deep into not only my journey away over the last 3 months, but really just looking at identity dysmorphia. Welcome, Helen. It's so good to have you back.
Thank you, Toni. As you can see, I have a new background. I've moved.
Yeah.
So whilst you've been traveling through Chile, some of us have had, real life to deal with.
Yeah, I love that. And it's beautiful to see you shine in a new space. I think, our environments, even to the point of being away for 3 months, my environment was so vastly different that it helped me really expand myself more. So I'm excited to see where you're going to go, being a Sagittarius and being up so high in the sky, like where you're elevating yourself to. So I'm excited to see that grow. Today we talk a little bit about identity dysmorphia and how this sort of misperception we have of ourselves and even of other people. I certainly know for me it was showing up, and how this kind of came to me was around men, and how I had this vision of who they were and what I wanted them to be, and then was sort of looking for them to validate who I was, when I really wasn't even seeing the fullness of who I am and what I brought to the table, and seeing that this dysmorphia about myself was then not causing me, because I don't want to say, was sort of attracting dysmorphia in them, which was then sort of like, in this constant cycle that I was of calling in people that weren't able to see me, because again, I wasn't seeing myself.
And how did those men help you see yourself?
I think by so viscerally showing me, by so viscerally not being what I wanted or what I deserved or what I was dreaming of.
Deserved. Nice.
Yeah, big word, which we didn't bring that word up in the talk, so I'm glad that it came through now. But they so viscerally confronted me in bringing me to a place where I wasn't getting what I wanted and what I deserved, of which then would trigger me to actually really see who they were, which actually then triggered me to see who I am. Like, so it was literally just going round and round, and it came out 2 or 3 times. It wasn't just a one-time pony. It certainly turned up a couple of times. And
that just shows you how strong
yes,
can be.
Thank you.
And it can be through learnings, identity. It can be reinforced through people in the workplace, different social situations, different travel situations.
Yeah.
You're always going to meet a person who can read you and who knows how to trigger you.
Yeah.
And they're going to put something in you, which is just one of the beautiful things of our life.
Yeah.
We're always called to grow and to break this identity.
Yeah, I mean, everything in our life is called to us so that we can learn and grow, like whether you want to accept that or not. And I think, one of my songs talks about acceptance is the first step, supersonic mental health, because really, unless you accept everything, like even the acceptance of the acceptance is the only thing that helps you, give you the tools to then move forward to sort of shift something to the next level. And that for me was huge, because I really couldn't even see who I was, because it's interesting because I had a lot of, I was angry at myself, and I was embarrassed, and I was ashamed, and I was tough on myself of like, how am I doing this to me again? Why am I still doing this? What am I doing? How can I really shift this? I thought I had shifted this, but this shit is so deep. This is like 45 years, of deep, and all these reinforced messages from our family and society, and then ourselves and our own journey and things like that. So, there's an element of being gentle with ourselves, because like this, maybe it might disappear overnight to some degree, but like this is deeply, deeply ingrained in me, that I've had my whole life had to do this song and dance to be noticed. And then when it didn't get noticed, then how I internalized that, what I did to then try and find it in a different way. It's like, water is going to squeeze out somewhere. And it was like, if it didn't get noticed, I would like try and do something somewhere else. And then it started showing up in my work. And then it was like how I could be, like push boundaries and do things to be seen. And I was being said bosses and things that were tough. And that was again to see myself in the work context. So none of this is an accident. There are no accidents, as one of our beautiful guests says today. There's no accidents. And coming across these conversations so that we can help other people, work through things, is amazing.
Things, find a language, resonate with the examples that have been said. At the end of the day, we're humans. We've had experiences that we're sharing and dissecting with you because we have a new realization and we want to help. And that is the intention that we offer this with you today.
Yeah. And you said something in the chat about awareness is everything. And, that's like, duh. But what I want to say is that some of this language might not resonate. Like, you might not know. I speak I know I talk about this in a sense, like I have a certain language. What did you say?
5D. You talk about it in very 5D language.
Yes. Like I'm talking about it on many levels. And I always want that to be irrelevant because it's about a vibration. And I think no matter what we're saying and what words, I think as you listen, you can hear the vibration of what we're talking about and how we're tuning to the vibrations of where things are off. And again, you might not understand all the words, or the example might not resonate, or you might not have that in your life. It might be a different situation. But I think our invitation for everyone is to feel the vibration and to allow that to sort of maybe spark something in you that might shift you to another place, because that's really what we are here to sort of like pinball bump each other up the evolution scale.
And one other thing is Toni's sharing her experiences. Just think about experiences in your life that remind you of that situation and how you can reflect on them.
Yes.
As we're reflecting through the examples.
Yeah. Yes. It's not about me. It's really about like the way it's showing up. And I promise you, if I've learned anything in the last few years of this journey, of self-reclamation, as well as sort of like study all and anything, everything consciousness, is actually we're all going through the same things. Like we're all having the same experiences. They're just slightly different outfits or slightly different situations or slightly different things. But I promise you, almost everything that we're talking about is showing up in your life in some way. But it just, it all comes back to the core of we all want to be loved. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard, and we all want to connect. That's it. That's really the crux of life as we know it. So amazing. Without further ado, let's head over to the conversation. I love you, and thank you again for always bringing your incredible energy and wisdom and knowledge and holding space for me while I throw myself on the line to talk about anything and everything with you. I love you.
Thank you for sharing your stories and being so vulnerable, because it's helping a lot of people.
Thank you. All right, enjoy the show. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Dive Into the Mind. It's been a while. I have been traveling for 3 months out of the country. It's been so incredible. And I've got so much awesome stuff to talk about. And I'm really excited to bring Helen back in to join us today. So let me get her up, and I'm having 2 moments. How are you all? What's happening? It's so beautiful to see your faces come up. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Toni, how are you?
Hi, I'm fantastic. Oh, so good to see your face.
Likewise, how are you? Post holiday.
Oh, post pilgrimage, post transformation, post like expansion of like a highest order. I mean, I think many of us know what it's like to travel and the beauty of that, and how that can bring so many different things to our life. And for me, I was in this journey of self-expansion, but also like collective energy. Like I was really feeling a lot of the collective energy, and then I met all these incredible humans on the journey that literally minute by minute by minute, they were just changing my life. You know, there's some of them are with us today, and some of them no doubt know who they are, but they really changed my life and how I saw things, what things they brought to me, the lessons. It was really profound. And
so what would you say that one of the biggest lessons has been?
Keep asking for help and being open to receiving it. Yeah, it was not only every day that I woke up, I said, you know, God, universe, whatever, like help me. Who am I meant to meet today? What am I meant to do? You know, show me where I'm meant to be. But there was also this this energy around allowing people to help me. You know what I mean? I felt there was just strangers that come out of the woodwork that would help me with my bags, that would help me with internet, stuff like that, would help me like move from one place to the other, like take me to bus stations and things like that. Like, and then people would just come out of the woodwork. They would hear sort of my accent. I think I was really the only foreigner traveling, which, you know, is kind of special in a way. But then these angels just showed up. And when I sort of looked into like their astral chart or whatever, we had like deep connections. Like there was absolutely like soul work that was needing to be done with all of these people. And that was also helping me on my journey to not only like I get all teary, like I felt like
go.
Thank you. I felt like I was being given the opportunity to reintegrate into life, relationships, intimacy, sharing, expressing, connection in a way that I didn't expect. And so each person and each town, each place helped me like practice a little bit of that stuff, like what I wanted, what I'm looking for, you know, in terms of relationships. You know, I met these incredible humans that like held my hand, or let me put my head on their lap, or carried my bags. Like I'm laughing and crying with you on so many levels right now, because it was so intense and amazing. And just to be cracked open, no matter, every time I wanted to almost go and be by myself, like another person would show up to expand me, to help me find that connection with myself, to trust again.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and I think also like the contrast of the last, you know, maybe 12 months of where you've been through. And, you know, everyone's been so isolated, and their worlds have been so small, and their interactions have been really small. It's like when you meet someone, you go, oh, wow, it's a fellow human being. And like you could be really excited.
Pizza.
And you could go, oh my God, like you're alive, I'm alive. And you're like, yes, connecting. And I think it's like, it's those small things where maybe you would have had a friend who you could, you know, lean your head on, or you know, share like a laugh with or something. And you're right, those small basics of intimacy, which is having your hand held. You know, and you're like, I don't know you, but like, can you just hold my hand? Because like, I don't ask a lot of people this, but can you just hold my hand for like 5 minutes? I promise it'll be enough. It's almost like you've discovered, you always kind of go, oh, do I have like a really bad fetish because I'm craving human affection or attention? But I think it's just a sign of the times. Like,
Yes, very true.
you've gone from being in a box to being in such a wonderful, beautiful landscape with a culture that is very homogenous. It kind of operates in a particular way.
Yes.
You've got a lot of the same like generational wounds that are passed down
Yes.
from generation to generation to generation. You've got broken masculine, feminine structures, according to me. Like, I'm sure they might say that
you're
they're
right.
fine.
No, you're reading the world beautifully and collective. I was also, traveling through a pandemic. So I was on this sort of rolling basis where each town that I went to, I was almost going through the same experience. They would kind of roll into quarantine, and then, things would be shut down, businesses would be affected, and lives would be affected. And I was experiencing that with each group as I went through each town. So over and over and over again. So I'm working through my own fears, like waking up every day going, where am I? How am I? Everyone's been traveling to some degree. So the day one you arrive somewhere, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You get set up, and then you're all settled, and like, now I'm by the pool, I'm hanging. And then your day two, day three, and then whatever days you're staying, then the day you leave, you have to pack again and go through that sort of feeling of shift and transformation and change. And I felt like I was just constantly putting myself into moments of change so that I could not only flush every bit of fucking fear inside of me to move it out, because I'm just I will no longer accept the status quo of being in a state where I live with fear instead of looking at it and understanding why it's coming up and what it is about that is triggering me. And, so there were childhood wounds, like you say, generational wounds, collective wounds, my own stuff. Like, it was just like day in, day out. And then maybe there would be, there were some days where I'm like, I should be sightseeing, and I'm just going to go to the beach, and I would buy an umbrella and I would sit there with my little blanket and all my toys, and I'd buy an empanada and an ice cream, and I would just spend like 3, 4, 5 hours being present with myself in a situation that felt so wild and crazy. Like, I can't do this. What am I doing? And it was, that is what I needed. And I think what I will also say about Chile was the earth and the land, the lugar, the montañas, the lagos, all of the nature was my guide and my anchoring to transmute that energy. Every single day, it was like looking at those mountains, looking at those volcanoes, being in those lakes. I swam. Anytime I was near a body of water, didn't matter what it was like, a river, a lake, a drip, I was in it morning and night, bathing away the fear and really pushing myself.
I would offer maybe a different perspective on that.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening. Welcome back. It's good to be back. I love talking about this stuff. I love going deep. And hold that thought quickly. I just realized also that just before I left, or while we were traveling, that Helen, that's Alexa, a reminder. Yes, Alexa. Helen moved house and has the most incredible background, but she also has a North Node Scorpio. And that, Alexa, and that is why I think these conversations with you are so important and so incredible, because you go to the depths of depths which I want to live in and I want to understand, but we come from very different angles. We've always talked about that. So I just wanted to flag that North Node Scorpio is one of my favorite parts of you.
And for those of us that don't know what that means,
okay, go.
Can you explain that to us?
Okay, got it. I thought you were going to explain. I was like, sure. Why don't you explain it?
I'm like, you just like, we have this, and I'm like, she's like, I've known you for 16 years. How do I not know this?
I know. Okay, North Node is your life's purpose. So anyone that looks at their natal chart, you have your sun, your moon, your rising. Maybe we can just quickly recap on this just for shits and giggles. Sun is what you are. For me, that's Pisces. The moon is how you feel, how you can be emotionally cared for. that's sort of what you feel on the inside. I'm a Leo, so I feel like a lion on the inside, but on the outside, I'm two fishes swimming around in circles, obvio. And I, on the outside, I'm a Aries. So I am, the world sees me as a ram, like someone who's like go fast, moving forward. But emotionally, I have this lion that's like wanting to like rah, and then the Pisces is kind of what I actually am. And the Northern is your life's purpose. So if you look at your chart, you can see that, and that really is kind of what you're here to do. And for me, Scorpio means that we're here to see the depths of everything. We want to understand everything. We want to feel the depths of emotions. We want to be able to express the depth of emotions and communicate with people in those deep ways, to be able to feel like we can, I don't even know if be of service is what it's about, but it's really about sort of like the deep, dark depths of turning over every rock to understand exactly what it is and why, and how we all interrelate, and all of this sort of, intricacies of life. So I love that about you. And I met one other special friend who has that on my trip too. So hi, friend.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. So what I wanted to return back to was the anchoring.
Please.
So you mentioned anchoring, and you mentioned fears. And fears are a way of us to anchor and to belong. So we have a fear of, for us to stay alive as humans, we need to connect and we need to belong.
Right. Yes.
And for you to go into a new culture, environment, destination each and every time, you have to anchor, and you're anchoring back to nature, which is what we all need to do, because we're so ungrounded. Like, have you ever met someone who can't, like, they're just kind of floating around? Do you ever look at people and just kind of go, oh my gosh, I just need to slap them to get them back into their body? Like, you need to do something visceral to their body to just grab them and get them back in. And that would be the part where people are just not grounded. Like, they don't connect to the ground. And, there's so much about fears keeping us safe, making us feel like we're belonging. That for you to continually cycle through them, you were using nature to anchor, and then you were easily able to process, let go. For me, the understanding is, here's the situation. I need to understand it from each and every angle of every person involved, of every generation of that person that was involved. And then I can let it go, and then I can ascend, or elevate, or step up, or move up.
Up level. Fascinating. Yeah. And I mean, I love you so much. And I think you talked about the generational, because I think also there's so much indigenous energy within that country as well. And not to say that there aren't within others, but there's a lot more history to that. And I learned a lot about the history, not only the sort of, not only the indigenous side, but also just, the literal history of the country, and how they had moved through things. And that was huge for me, to be able to actually to understand that, learn that, and then apply that to myself, of how I was like clearing my own generational stories and my own generational experiences, even just being away for that long. And for me, I think as my life shifted to become an artist, I've always been an artist to some degree, but I've never really claimed it. And we're going to get into the topic today of identity dysmorphia, because I think everything you're saying is just, we're all lining up how this is going to go. But, I never really identified or claimed the concept of being an artist. And so for me, as much as I was having a vacation or a sabbatical, I would say, I really felt like it was work. I was working on a new book. I was painting a lot. And I had a conversation with my father last night, which, was very lighthearted, but he sort of, when are you going to come back and get back to work? And it was so interesting to hear that, because I'm like, how do you know that I wasn't working when I was on my trip? But that's, again, that sort of concept, for 3 months to travel. Originally it was 1 month that I went, and then I extended for another month and the full 3 months. And I would have stayed longer if I could have extended the visa, but 3 months to be able to it went into a level of integration into the body in a way that was different. And we might have talked about this before. Just before I left, I did ayahuasca, and I had this very clear vision of 3 circles. It was like, literally, I remember it being like snap, snap, snap. These 3 projectors went on. I mean, fascinating, all very much in a sort of psychedelic sort of nature. The first circle had my face in it, very clear. And then the other 2 circles were empty. And as the world works, I picked up some random book off the street, and it had these 3 exact concentric circles, and it was a story, like this conversation about ego, body, and nature.
Right, nice.
So when I went on this trip, it was like my ego came out, and then using nature, I was able to anchor it in the body and then make that change and make that shift, because I really felt I was making adjustments to my own mental state and molecular state by actually, you know, having that earth to ground to. You know, you've got these, I don't know about anyone who's ever been to that country or even something, but to be standing in front of, like, in a desert, standing in front of like volcanoes that were like the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life, you know, whether they were like 100 kilometers away, you know, they're certainly in the distance, and just the power from that. And being a female, it was literally just like, rah, like straight
you're like, I want to explode, I want to erupt, all of the emotions are going to come out of me.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, I was like a channel, like, just feeling it come through, come through, come through. And then, you know, the only thing maybe that, let's say, affected that channel and the clarity or the clearness of it was then stuff that triggered me. So then I would have to work through what that was, and then anchor that down and integrate and make another shift. So it was like constantly this pipe or this bandwidth just coming through me, and then from there kind of cleaning it as, like, you know, like blockages came or shitty pieces came, and then sort of clearing it out. Fascinating.
There's when you said that, like, you connected and you anchored to the to nature, there's something like, as humans, we naturally go into a room and we just connect with people. And let's just say you're in a room with angry people, or there's been an argument or something. You're in that room. You can visibly feel and sense their presence, and it's having an impact on you, whether or not you know you're open to it or not. You might be closed to it, and you could be like, actually, I still need to get away from this and cleanse myself. So the fact that when you're around people, you pick up their energy, and then when you're in nature, you pick up nature's energy. So people are an expression of all their experiences, and nature is nature. Nature's not going, I have a brown leaf, it's falling off, I'm not perfect. Nature's just like, this is me, this is part of the process. And nature's just evolving, growing, letting go, shedding. And you were picking up on that energy of, I'm going to grow, I'm going to explode, be it a volcano or anything else that, given the season of time of the year that you were there, there would be this there's a natural process in nature that as humans we've forgotten. And we're so in our heads, and we're like a brain or a mind walking around with a body that's disconnected. And you just need to get back into your body to feel what your body is telling you, because your body's communicating with you all the time. And getting back to nature resets that body. Like, it resets the nervous system, it resets the body. And a lot of us have hyperactive nervous systems.
And also that sense, we go back to like a chakral concept, you know, that real sacral, you know, chakra is on high alert. You know, everybody is in this state of absolutely nature, you know, like this, the sense of safety and security. And I think, you know, that's really what how helpful nature was, that it was like, there was no sort of like, I'm in danger or I need something. And the power of going back to that sort of original state. You know, it's interesting. Thank you, Zolga Cox, for your message there, because I want to.
What was your identity in nature? What was your identity in nature? Who's the Toni identity in nature?
yeah, free flowing, honest, open, relaxed, clear, conscious, curious, all of those things. And then bit by bit, you know, things would get put on it that I would then have to take off.
Right.
You know, go.
And do you identify with all of those things now that you're back in the city?
Absolutely. I think that I can say I definitely identify with all of those throughout my, like, let's say my last few years of my life in my kind of consciousness journey. But I can see more clearly how when things have come in, I've gotten away from that and let that sort of unanchor me, or that pull away from my tethering, and then to get back to it, how sort of simple. And it becomes the practice. And we talk about consciousness and elevation, ascension, whatever, as a practice, because each day we have to go back and remind ourselves. And that's kind of where I was going. It's funny. I really felt this trip was like a self-reclamation. And I've been talking about this kind of, you know, self-reclamation for a few years as a concept. And that anyone that has read Women Who Run with the Wolves would know that that's sort of really about women going back and claiming who they are from the very beginning. And I've often thought that, like, maybe this is my natural state when I'm like that in nature. You know, I think about last year when I after the camp that I created in August, I took some time upstate in an Airstream, and I camped for a week, and I just had a fire and then the little camping van. And when you're sort of like rolling with nature, in a sense, you wake to the sun and the birds, and then you using the fire to cook your meals in ways that you probably wouldn't, you know, in your own house. Or if you went into a hotel or something like that. There was this moment that I remember sort of almost being like a little, I'm going to use the word pygmy because I think that's the vision I get, but like I was this little pixie or pygmy, like kind of naked, running around the bushes, cooking on the fire, and like sort of talking to trees. And I was like, maybe this is my natural state, like, and maybe everything else that I have, like, I was like, this is actually what I'm meant to be. And I think there's a lot of
your inner pygmy came out.
yeah, literally, I feel like I just was like I was the real me, you know, like this is where I feel most comfortable, this is where I feel that I can be myself, you know. I'm dancing with the sun, and I'm moving around. And I felt that come in very much, like, you know, in the north, in San Pedro, there was this one little place I stayed in, and it was, you know, it's in the middle of the desert, so it's hot, hot, hot. But every day was this beautiful dance with the sun. You know, I would wake up early and the shade would be here, so I would, you know, sit and ride and have my breakfast, and then the sun would move, so I would move to the next little spot. And it was this dance all day with the elements. And if it was windy, you know, I would sort of be around a corner, so I would still be in it but not affected by it, and being able to sort of modify my environmental behaviors in order to kind of match that. I was like, I think this is how I'm meant to be every day.
and if you were in an office or in a box, the apartment or the home, how could that behavior show up?
And how to move with the nature. Yeah, it's interesting because my apartment here faces the south, so basically from very early in the morning, you know, the sun moves across, and throughout the whole day the sun sort of moves as a almost as a person that lives here. And one of the things that I've always said, that if I didn't have this view and this sun, like I really wouldn't have made it through some very, very dark times, because every day the sun rose. There was no question. Like you say, nature just does. Nature just is. Therefore, every day the sun rose. So I have learned to move with the sun within my apartment, knowing that now I'm in this smaller space. You know, I have some nature. I talk to my tree. I watch it grow. I notice the, you know, the little sort of shoots that come out. You know, very much a integrated process to be with the nature that I can see. Looking for the sunset, I try and get to the water every day. So, you know, not everybody has the access to all of those things, but there are ways that we can tune back in. And the moon's another one. I mean, you know, everybody knows that I'm a huge moon freak, but like the moon is a way. I think there was a girlfriend that taught me originally taught me about the moon and sort of the power of it, and how as women we can as women we can tune our bodies into the rhythm of the moon and the earth, the monthly cycles and things like that, imagining that the earth has a resonance to it, which we know it does. I don't know if it's 432 hertz, but the earth has a resonance. Yeah. And as we tune into the sort of the moon and other elements, we can almost tune our body. And that's really what I felt like I was doing. There was one point I was standing in front of those mountains, and it was like I was like transforming myself into like getting that power.
And but what were you saying to yourself? Like what level of consciousness or awareness did you have in your body or in your mind?
I'm
like
full deep in it. I mean, I'm standing going, come into me, bring me body alive. Like I'm right in every day, all day. Thank you. Bowing to the sun, in meditation. Some days I would just lay there. Other days I would, pray. Some days I would write about it. Like I'm in full conversation with nature every day, inclusive of my own self, inclusive of my own, going back to those 3 concentric circles, ego, body, and nature. Like I was in conversation, like what is in my head, what's in my heart, how can I shift being in my head and getting to my heart, all of that.
And what tips do you have for people who might be listening? It's like, how do you know that the voice is nature and the voice is not just your ego kind of going, you're a pygmy?
I think, I love it. You're a pixie, get naked and run around in the bush. Well, I think if something inside your head is saying get naked and run inside the bush, go for it. Just see what happens. Get a semi-safe environment or whatever you want to sort of like do for yourself.
Or you might be put in prison. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Try not to do it too much in the streets. I think that it's a vibration. Everything is a vibration. And that's also really what I think I was tuning myself to. I promise I'll answer that question. I'll come back to it. But being in a country where everyone spoke a different language and I was the outsider triggered a lot of my stuff around belonging, which you talked about. And so then using the nature to help realize that I belong, because we all belong. We belong. We are nature. We're one of it. We're each other. All of those things. So I think that there's an element that I would then just tune to the vibrations, listening to what people said. Like I did a lot of deep listening to the earth, like what it had to say to me, and what nature had to say to me, what my kind of conversation was with that, and tuning into the vibration of it, because you can feel it. I mean, like you said, if you're in a room and people are having dramas, you can feel it. Even if it's not about you, you can feel it. And that's sort of an interesting element too, of like, how do I keep myself clear of those vibrations of somebody else? And, we've talked before, and I think, it's always important to talk about the concept of making sure you don't pick up other people's energy and things like that. And using the vibrations to then tune yourself. I was like, is this my shit or is this someone else's shit? And just being really honest, just really, really, really honest with myself in every bit. Is this my stuff? Yes. Okay. Why? What am I being triggered?
And how did you know it was your stuff? Could you feel it in the body somewhere? Could you feel if you could describe it in the body, what would it feel like? Like a constriction or a sharp pain or a...
All of the above. It was different on certain days. Like there was probably, being very blunt, there was probably many, many mornings that I woke with anxiety in my stomach and I would go to the bathroom, like big time. And that is something that I started to see that would come up when I was moving towns, when I had to pack my bags and go somewhere. So I saw where it turned out. If I was, having to sort of change environments or move myself out of one, I would see it come up straight away. So that would be something about, in the morning, holding my belly, talking to it. It's okay, we're going to clear this. Like I actually not welcomed it as in I wanted more of it, but I made space for it because it needed to come out and it needed to be cleared, like literally and figuratively. And so that was how I would tune in. Then other moments I would sort of look at, like, maybe the environment or the situation I was in, if there was sort of people fighting or there were dramas, and then looking at where it sort of showed up, like, did it make me angry? Did it make me sad? Like, kind of just looking how it adjusted my moods, and then just being curious about those and asking, like, okay, is this my stuff? I think actually this is a little bit about me feeling left out. And then why am I feeling left out?
And yeah, what identity did you associate that with?
Oh, I love you so much.
Yeah, I'm bringing it back to the identity.
Yeah, you're making an incredible segue, because again, we're talking today about identity dysmorphia and what that means, because I think we have it as women, as humans, as a collective, as workers, as colleagues. We have it as all things. I think where it showed up and kind of how I started to see it was again around that stuff. Like, I feel like my social experiment that I'm doing with myself, as I have taken on this, I don't know if it's challenge, because that's bringing an energy to it. I have committed to the social experiment of being in conversation with the universe and asking for things to help me learn and grow and expand, and situations, I know that is what my path is. Like, I know that when I go places, I am there to try everything and do everything and meet everyone so I can understand and learn, so that I can then expand myself. So this identity, kind of what I think was probably the first, like, wave of fear or wave of extraction, I really use that word a lot, was like what I should be doing. Who takes 1 month's holiday to start with, and what I am going to allow myself to do on that time in that first, and it was over Christmas and New Year's and the beginning of January, so the first month. So there was an allowance that I gave myself to sort of like just be on holidays and just enjoy. That would be no different if I went somewhere else.
So if you could label the old identity and where it came from, where did it belong to? Where did it originate from?
I think I love where you're going. I think my parents, I think the old way of being, bless our parents. I mean, I think this is the beauty also, like, we are who we are. We called them in to teach us these lessons and to deepen the conversation. My parents are all Tauruses, which is the opposite of my North Node. So I came from where they are, and I'm going towards Scorpio, which again, if you look at North Node, South Node. And so I came from grounded, practical, you must do this is the only way things go, very much that kind of thinking, to knowing that I am different, and that knowing that I am meant to innovate and create new worlds, knowing that I am here on this earth to help people with consciousness and their journey of ascension through my lens of all the business and the spirituality and all the play and the artistic stuff. Like, I have my own sort of lens. And so what that first extraction came up, I was like, I will be seen as a crazy person, as a bad person, as a naughty person, as a not responsible person who does this during a pandemic, who does this when they're not earning money. All of those old identities came up of that I can't do this. And that really was the first level to kind of clear.
Yeah, right. Identity or level? What would you, now that you're reflecting back on it, what would you call it?
I think they're pieces, they're parts of us, they're identities, they're all of them. Maybe the words are interchangeable because they're versions of ourselves. If we get into what identity dysmorphia, for me, that's really what I established about myself. And it came up originally, how I started kind of musing on this concept was when I would meet people on the road. Because of the language, I would either have this very broken Spanglish, English, Spanish way of explaining who I was and what I had done and what I'd achieved and where I was going. And often that would be like this tiny little part of it. And oh, bless. Yeah, there are no accidents. There are no accidents. Like that is just like the joy of all of this. So I'm so happy to hear that. There was I think in the collective remembering, that's really what I'm also kind of coining this time. We're all remembering who we are. So I'm for example, there was this girl I met at the beach and she was smoking a joint and I didn't smoke. So I went up and said hi and I was like scared to ask her. It was this really sort of weird situation. And then we ended up having this most beautiful conversation. She's a musician, and what I realized is like how little of myself I shared about her. And on one level, again, knowing that we're all sort of particles and bumping into each other and all the rest of it, it didn't matter because it was about a vibration. We were just sharing the ocean and the joy and this moment of like that we both make music and that we know our voices are here for the world and we have gifts. But she was so in it. She was just like, yeah, I'm a singer and I've got a gift and I know what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, that was a lot for me because I was like, oh, I want to own that identity of myself, but I didn't. There was like a reservation in whatever that was. So it started to show up in how I was introducing myself to people, and then started to show up of how actually, how do I even perceive myself?
So that that reservation of owning the singer, like if you went back to your family, if we go back to the concept of we want to belong because belonging makes us safe and we're guaranteed survival. If you went to your family and said, hey, I'm a singer, and they're going to be like, we know you, we've heard you. Like, whole, which makes it hard for you to identify with that aspect of you. That's a new expression that you can train yourself to do. And, you know, I'm told that everybody can be taught to sing.
Absolutely.
Your natural ability and expression based on the joy you have and the passion for it is obviously going to make you exceptional. But everyone can, if you call singing holding a note, which is by basic understanding, then apparently everyone can be taught to sing.
Absolutely. And I mean, we all have that muscle, and it's no different to work that muscle out than it would be to go to the gym. And some people choose to go to the gym and some people don't. Some people, you know, choose to play basketball and train harder and can be better at that. And I think also, I would add on like all the metaphysical side of like our throat chakra is where we speak, it's where we express. And having the ability to, not the ability, the trust in yourself and your vessel to let that out for fear of what somebody may say. It's the most vulnerable thing to do is outrageous. Like that's what I feel on a daily basis. Like I would see myself, like even some kid was on the subway the other day and he had his phone here and he was just like and I was like, what would it be like if I just did that? Like what would it be? Not only like I'm going through my own mind of like he's rude, he's got no speakers, he's got no earphones or whatever, but what would it be like if I just held my phone up and the sound and went like, I'm running down the street, I'm gonna be a beat, and just like rapped out loud, like or whatever, like, and that's okay because it's not that crazy or it's not that bad, or you know maybe I'm not good at it, but that vulnerability is fascinating. And you know that is also tied into like how we speak and how we show up and those identities we show. You know, you could put that into a work context. I think a lot of the stuff that we talk about has so much overlap to our work lives because that's kind of I think where you and I started this journey on a work perspective, and then it sort of shifted more into our personal side or a wholesome angle. But I mean, how many meetings have you been in where you haven't had the courage to speak up or, you know, say what you think, or the reverse where you've been really vocal about something you know.
Yeah. So I have a share from
I love
it's a
shares.
client story. It's a client
Okay.
story.
Okay.
So she went back to a memory where she was 5 years old, and her sister and her were putting on a show for her parents.
Okay.
And she started to sing impromptu. She started to sing. She got more attention than the sister, and the sister just told her to shut up. Their parents were just like, no, let your sister sing, and the older sister kept on having a tantrum. And so this was, you're 5 years old, somebody you look up to and respect tells you to shut up, and your parents don't back you up to allow you to express your voice. So you're kind of like, whenever I'm around authority, I can't speak up. And as simple as that story sounds, if you get enough of those stories where you have an older sibling shutting you down all the time, you're going to be like, I have no voice, I'm not understood if I try to express myself, this is not going to happen. So my communication style at work and in meetings was very direct, succinct, and to the point. Some might say abrupt. I would say effective and efficient, but we all have a different. We all have a different lens.
Identity. Yeah.
Right. So my thing is, people don't have time. They don't have the ability to concentrate. So if I deliver the message in a short way, it'll be effective. Which essentially in this day and age just rubs people up the wrong way most of the time. Because people want to be involved, they want to have their ideas canvassed. Like, let's have 20 people. Let's have maybe 8 to 10 people in a meeting. Let's get consensus decision making. And I'm like, can't we just make it simple? So were there many times where I wanted to speak up? So I remember when somebody else effectively said the same thing before me and nobody heard it. So they said something and I was like, it's a great idea. And it was just ignored by the entire table that was there. And then I would repeat it later. And then all of a sudden the idea was understood and accepted. Or vice versa. Like earlier on in my career, I'd be like, there's this, and this, and it would be ignored. And then somebody else would say, I have a great idea. Paraphrase what I just said. And then it would be accepted. And you're like...
And you'd be like, are you kidding me?
Right, yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I've had like 1 or 2 people lose their shit at me because they're like, I said, I acknowledged you and that, like, I didn't take your idea. It's like, here's the point that was made before and we need to go with it. But some people just are either not seen, don't have a voice, and that comes back to a long pattern of not being seen or heard by somebody in a position of authority when they were younger, be it their parents were never around or be it their older sibling was always, having a go at them in any which way, shape or form.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't even matter. And, this is just amazing because you just said being seen or heard. So let's table all of that and kind of go down the identity dysmorphia. For me, what I realized that I have it, I don't know about an extreme, but it feels like I want to say it of just how big the lesson came. And for me, it showed up around men, in terms of like the men that I'm interested in, the men that I'm like looking for. Actually, let me rephrase that. The men that I keep calling in, and the men that keep showing up, and the men that I am desperate, and I'm using that word on purpose, for them to see my value, right? And so I have discovered that I have an incredible dysmorphia around the men that I'm calling in terms of like who they are, what they can offer me, where they're at in their life, what they look like, and all of these things. And there's a real dysmorphia. For me, dysmorphia comes, the concept of body dysmorphia is sort of where this evolved from. And if anyone's familiar with sort of eating disorder or people that have sort of eating things, there's sort of an exercise where you stand up against the wall and you draw your outline of what you think you look like compared to what you do. And I think we all have an element of body dysmorphia in terms of we think, our bum's too big or our boobs are small or whatever, whatever your, extrapolation is. And so then I started to see this turn up around these men and how someone said to me, a very good friend, and so it went right to the heart and right to the place of change, which I think truth can and will. And I think that when we are extremely honest with ourselves, with no, no filters, no adding anything on, we can really instantly clear something and heal something in a very powerful way. And mine was basically seeing, the girlfriend said to me, she's like, I sometimes I see these guys that you're interested in, and I don't even know how you like give them the time of day. Like the fact that they're not even in your league, they're not even in your arena, in the same game, in the same level. They're like, the kids version versus the men, the adults version, whatever. And that really like sunk in, and this dysmorphia that I had around, like, I think because of my.
Can you pinpoint it now? Could you share what that dysmorphia was? Like what part of it?
Yes.
If that's not too.
No, absolutely. And I think where I was going was, I have an incredible gift to be able to see people's worth and value, but potentially in the future, like in many ways. But I was seeing these men of who I believed or wanted them to be in order to satisfy me in what I needed versus what they actually were.
And would you be the one that would heal them to get to that future?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, like, I love how you did that very kindly. And this is the beauty of friendship, that we can have these conversations. Absolutely. Excuse my French. Like, absolutely. Like, I know that I have the power inside of me, vested in me by the universe, to heal this person and to bring them to their greatness, because I believe in everybody's greatness. And that is an amazing concept and a ridiculous one. We both know that. And and that is not my role. That is not my place. That is not my duty. That is not my job. That is certainly not how I'm going to attract a man of the stature that will match the wholeness of me, which is what, again, I learned about my own identity dysmorphia, and actually how much value I have. And so that's where it came back around to being seen or heard. I was doing these incredible dances and all of this jumping around so that I could have them see the value of who I am, because they weren't seeing it, because they're not the right ones to see it.
Yeah. And I would also add is that you had to do the big dance and show to be seen as a child, which is why you thought that doing the big dance and show would get you seen for other people.
Ding, 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 ding. Say that again so I can really take that in. Just paint that picture for me.
So when you were younger, your way to be seen was to be the big dance and show, and you've carried that way of being seen throughout your entire life.
Yeah.
And when that is how you get seen, you tap into a certain part of your personality. Like, I like to think we all have aspects of our personality. And for any woman who's been successful in her career, she's probably had to sit more in that alpha masculine direct.
Yeah.
That may have changed these days and age. I feel like maybe that was a 5 years ago thing, and maybe not a now thing. But and when you tap into that area and you stay in that area too long, you can get stuck there unless you've got a way to transition out of it. And if you've had to,
or even the awareness to be able to do that.
Awareness is the key to everything. Like, for you to understand this entire conversation, there needs to be a certain level of awareness and openness. And that openness is, I understand what they're talking about. Oh, that's a new thing. Or I'm consolidating what I know, as opposed to I know everything. What are these women going to teach me? So that awareness, to be cognizant of the fact that, like, you're operating in a particular zone, and you probably feel uncomfortable in your body operating like that as well. But because you've done it for so long, you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling uncomfortable. And then you're looking around at external factors as to why you're feeling uncomfortable. And you're associating the discomfort with something that's really not causing the discomfort. It's just the fact that you're not being your true self. So it's quite comical. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's bloody hilarious. And it really showed up in some really funny ways. And the universe like really gave me these lessons, like big time.
Really?
And I tried to negotiate and I tried to argue with it and I tried to like force it and I tried to like, you know, really push and pull to be like, no, I want this and it has to go like this and this person has to be this to show me. And I think even to, because I think actually too, as I was thinking about my childhood, because I think I've just started recently, so I danced from like, I'm making it up because I don't remember exactly. I feel like I danced from like age 5, 8, whatever, through to maybe 13 or something. Like dance was like my first love. Then I shifted from dance to horses. And then I went from horses to boys. And that's always been like a narrative that I've sort of told people over my life. And I think that it's kind of funny how those things that were really there for me to be my true self were there from the very beginning, but then I moved away from them. And I've been kind of just being curious with myself lately and kind of asking myself in meditation and stuff like that, what was it that took me from dance to horses? Like because that's a huge jump. I didn't have anything to do with, never had a horse before. So I went from like one to another. And as I look back at the sort of like the song and dance of maybe what I was doing when I was younger, that maybe that wasn't working, because as the age of where my parents then were and all the shifts that was happening with the sort of separation and divorce and moving countries, towns and states and things, that actually that wasn't working anymore. And no one was either paying attention to me or I wasn't feeling like I was getting results from it. Maybe again, I'm just making this up as I speak. So it's interesting that I did shift to horses in terms of like something so extremely different, then had to have an incredible learning curve, like self-taught horse riding, and, you know, had a young pony or an old pony at the very beginning. He was just wild and crazy. And I was like, you know, just a mess. And then, you know, refined myself as I went through and taught myself that. So it's interesting because I think that, when you talk about like the song and dance actually not being my true self and feeling uncomfortable, like I don't think I saw that until now, obviously, but also just looking at how this pattern has come back around, that it wasn't like what I'm getting. I wasn't getting what I needed or wasn't getting any responses from people. And so then having to shift that into boys to be doing all of this stuff to sort of get noticed. And it's interesting now that I danced a lot when I was on this trip, like a lot of again, the integration with the nature. So at the beach and things like that, using the earth to hold me, and kind of a lot of stuff when I restarted dancing in the last couple of years, I was sort of like scared to fall or scared to sort of jump and land, and all of these things that are kind of quite natural when you have like a sense of core and strength.
And you're
that's
grounded.
A physical thing. Yes, exactly. It's more of a rooting than it is a physicality. You know what I mean? I don't need to be like an Olympic athlete. It's about a rooted and grounding. So I was using the earth to do that. I remember there was this one time at the beach where I had a rock in my hand and I was using it and letting it like have the weight of the rock to help me move, and then sort of finding slow falls and drops and things to kind of get that like into my body of how I could do that, to trust that, so that I could continue that metamorphosis of coming back to myself as a dancer, because I know inside of me that's what I meant to do. I meant to dance. But there's a fear factor of like, I can't do it. So using the earth to kind of bring me back. So it's interesting that all those things are reflecting.
And that goes back to your the 3 circles, right?
Say that again.
So ego, nature, body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that the interconnectedness of those, and also the the integration of how we actually take it through, like taking it out of my ego and my head and into the heart, into the body, and then using nature to ground it. I mean, it's an incredible thing. So the concept of go.
Would you now say that ego is the dysmorphia?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to say it. Like, I think ego is the, you know, going back to something we've talked about a lot, the stray dogs that, you know, that are kind of going to snap at your feet in order to sort of pull you away from who you truly are, the dysmorphia of what you're meant to be and what your core knowing or inner being is. And so that dysmorphia that was pulling me for these men, where I could see these people that I wanted, and I wanted them to be this, yet the disappointment and the sadness and the loss and the continual cycle that, like, I can't call in a man that is going to see me for the fullness of who I am, is because I couldn't see myself.
Is that also because, you know, we talk, our first relationship with the man is with our father. Was your father able to see you for who you were?
No, I don't think so. And I love him dearly. And actually, you know, like I said, it was only last night that we had the conversations around him being like, you know, well, it's glad you're home and now you got to get back to work. And I was like, you know, my work is my art. My work is my life. My work is, for me, it's all of the one, and finding boundaries of when we work and when we relax. But, you know, my work is, I am an artist. I am someone who creates. I am someone who inspires myself to see change in the world, to bring change by asking questions, by challenging the status quo, by investigating, by being curious, by being open, by allowing myself to be overtaken by the power of the universe, you know, in a way that I can allow it to run through me so that I can be of true service to myself and to the world, you know what I mean? But that's pretty far out stuff for a Taurus, you know. I've certainly had incredible.
And that's your father. The Taurus is the father, not you, obviously.
Yes, my dad is, and my mom as well. But I've had, you know, massive shifts with my parents. I think there's a, you know, if we look at it too, you know, for parents that are open and willing to see their children differently, it's a journey for them too. 45 years, my parents have been looking at me in one way. And their hopes and dreams and their own stuff and their own story. So then to all of a sudden have some daughter come home and say, I'm spiritual and I'm an artist and I'm going to sing, like, that must be a lot, you know.
And how do you think that impacted their ability to connect with you when they connected with you in a certain way for 45 years? And then all of a sudden you ripped this identity away from them and they're just like,
yeah. I think
they're not geared for change either, right? Keep that in mind. No. They're not geared for change. So
yeah. So
when you're like, hey, this is who I am, they're like,
yeah,
really.
Yeah, the question marks. I think the beauty, my mom, and all of this stuff I'm sharing today, I would share with them, you know. So this is not a secret, or else, you know, I trust they'll watch this at some point. I really hope so. But it's gradual, and it's with care, and it's with kindness and consideration and compassion, and it's also with action speaking louder than words, you know, like the way I've been able to transform my life by being an artist and actually developing my artistic practice and my universally driven practice of being sort of that way. It's speaking louder, you know. Like, I think anyone that knows me and sees the transformation that I've made in my life through the situations that I called in and asked for to grow, and the work that I've done, and will know that, like, I'm not messing around, and like, I'm really committed to this. And I think, you know, my mum and I have actually, you know, been able to understand each other on a different level. And I think actually it's even freed my mum to become really who she truly is, who is actually very artistic and very creative and very has a lot of emotions and things that she wants to share, but never felt like she had a platform to do that, or there was even a place for her to do that. You know, mums don't do that, or, you know, this person doesn't do that. It's all this identity dysmorphia, all this stuff that we think that kind of person doesn't do this, or this person doesn't do that, or we're not allowed to do this. Or if I'm, you know, an event planner for 25 years and I've done stuff all over the world, then all of a sudden I can't all of a sudden be something different. You know, my dad's like, well, what about your event company? And I'm like, no one's doing events. Like, this is just not me being shit, and I've done a bad job, and now I'm like, I've got no work all of a sudden. Like, the whole world has shifted. And part of my evolution and my identity sort of reclamation is finding who I am, so I can bring that to the world and live in my gifts, because I know then I'm going to be more happy, the people around me, I'm going to have better relationships probably with my parents, because I'm not in that state of, you know, kind of disjointedness, and really being able to embrace, how can I use all of the parts of myself, the wholeness of who I am, and instead of dancing and doing all of this, just really own that and be that, you know?
So what would be your top 3 tips to maybe reclaim yourself or identify the dysmorphia?
Well, I love that you said this, because I started writing some stuff about this. I love Helen always brings it back to the tips.
It's the effective meeting part of me coming back in.
No, I love it. I've been actually kind of working on this little, I love how you're joking and I'm really serious. I'm like, well, actually, let me consult my book here on page, this was written at X time, because I categorize and archive everything. But I sort of feel like, and I have an incredible coach, Elizabeth Trainer, that I work with, a 5D coach, who's really, she's a reflector in human design. No, human design. I'm a manifestor, she's a reflector. So we've been kind of working on this arc, and it came up in our last session around sort of maybe like just a journey, like start, middle, finish. And if you go back to the camp, we had the arc of connection, expression, expansion.
Okay, got it.
And for anyone that came to the camp, you know, there were sessions about connection, and I think that's, I guess where I'm going is, I feel like there's this curriculum almost, like that's a really heavy and intense word, but like this sort of journey of what I've been really sort of like playing out. What is this, the journey of self-reclamation? Because I think, just to put it out there for everyone that's listening, first of all, this shit is all free. The universe is free. Self-reclamation is free. Self-understanding is free. Everything we're doing here, you don't need coaches. You don't need anybody. Like, we don't need anybody, because we have it all inside of us. And really, this is something that I want to continue to express. Everything that I share and all the work that we do, you know, collectively, we didn't make this up. This has come from like BC, you know, like this is, you know, love and fear and trust and not trust, you know, all the kind of polarities of what it is. So, you know, the concept of everything that I'm talking about is free. You know, if you want to work out and have a great body, you could do it all for free with no gym, if you were dedicated and committed enough. And I think the spiritual practice, the journey of becoming whole, the journey of self reclamation, the journey of loving yourself as fiercely. You said this to me one day. I wish, Toni, you would love yourself as fiercely as you love all these fucking stupid men that you have in your life.
I don't think I said stupid man, but you ad-libbed there. I just said I wish you'd love yourself as fiercely as you love those men. Yeah.
Well, bless those stupid men for helping me find myself and helping me find. So going back to your point, I think I really boiled it back to kind of, I broke it into sort of 6 steps, like the basics. You know, if I was going to share my journey of self-reclamation, I would say, let's just boil it back to basics. Are you, I think of my grandfather, shit, shower and a shave. Like, are you, like the real basics, are you caring for yourself? What are you doing for yourself in the true, like lowest chakra basics? How are you feeding yourself? How are you resting, sleeping, and sort of nurturing yourself? And maybe how are you speaking to yourself?
Sure.
Like the real basics, like just don't even worry about like, I'm going to meditate every day. Like just spend
Yeah.
some time and write about like what your journey with yourself is from a
Yeah.
basic level.
Like good food, good sleep, good exercise,
That's it.
water.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
And every day, that is your only job. Your only job is to love and care for yourself in a way that enables you to be the happiest sort of baseline person. Again, if we talk about sort of anchored, grounded, the baseline person, so you can then go ahead and do other things. Then,
and to be anchored, you'd be eating real food, like food that is in its raw form. It's natural.
Absolutely.
It's not this processed crap with added preservatives and sugar. It's all natural, because that's going to ground you back to nature.
Yeah, absolutely. The colors, whether you're vegetarian or you know, meat or pescatarian, I think there's ways you can find you know, options that support you in all of those. But really the concept is to go back to basics and look at how you're feeding yourself. Then I kind of went into like maybe the guides and networks that you have around you. And I think that for me was like, are you, you know, kind of curious and open to the unseen? Because I think there's a lot of support and a lot of networks to kind of start asking the questions of like, how can I be of service? You know, who am I meant to meet today? How can I be, what can I do for myself? And that kind of thing. And then I think there's, you know, maybe aligned action when you start to hear those voices and you start to get that guidance, is then tuning in to what makes sense and then actually taking action on that. And you know, this week, my favorite Leo King, he was talking about the energies this week, and really it's a week of action and to, you know, to follow the signs and take steps. And I had a huge realization yesterday that maybe some of these actions and steps aren't like the sky's going to blow up and this is the sign. Like maybe it's the tiniest little thing, you know, like, and maybe I think there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, I need a big sign. Oh my God. And it's like, no, actually, I just need a tiny little bit to just move this forward. And a tiny little bit. If you think about your day, and we've all been blessed with this sort of slowing down of time during COVID and this time frame, to be like, okay, what do I need in this minute to feel good? Food. Okay, I've just eaten. What do I need in this minute now to feel good? Sunshine. What I need and I know there is work and kids and children and life and all of those things in the mix. But if we're having that dialogue as the core underlying factor of our entire life, then those other things will come in. You know, if you think about, you know, your children, if you can't, everybody knows if you can't feed yourself, it's like put the gas mask on yourself. You can't feed your children and raise your children if you're running from an empty cup. So maybe that just means 5 minutes to give yourself a meal so that you have the power and strength to go do the shit you need to do. You know, it's really quite basic. So I feel like coming back to basics, being open to support and guides and networks and sort of like really stepping into the game of life. It's a game. It's a Mario Brothers. You know, we're up-leveling ourselves. Like, it's that funny.
And for those of us who have traumatic childhood memories where we were never chosen to play in the school team for the game, what do you say for those people? Because that happens, and the word game, the word play the game can be really triggering. It's like, I don't want to play the game. I didn't play the game as a kid. I'm not going to play as a
True. Yeah, and I'm one, I was never coordinated eye and hand at all. Like embarrassingly, I need a tennis racket like this big and I still can't even hit the ball. And I was also called last in those things. And I was also like at school, when people lined up outside the door, they would line up everybody in the other line and leave me in the line in the line on my own. Like really traumatic stuff. And I think my answer to that is create your own game.
Right, nice.
Like it is. Again, it is free and available to you, the universe, the power of this, you know, whatever you want a word you give it, magic or God or Allah or, you know, Buddhism, whatever you want to call it. Like it's literally a free membership that you can join. You don't have to have an app for it. You don't have to have any money for it. You can join and you can participate with it in a way and start that dialogue, start having an amusing, enjoyable experience. Like even a girlfriend the other day said she manifested something really big and it came in and then it went again. You know, she met a guy and then he was just in town for one night and then she's like, you know, why did I only get it for one night? But I was like, this is just to show you that that's available and that he's incredible and there are people out there, and then to lead you on the next. So then start throwing out smaller things like, okay, you know, God, I need a you know, I need a IT person, or I need a you know, I need some bananas or something, and then just be curious. And then on the way home, the dude's gonna have a food stall, or, you know, fruit stall on the side of the road, and there's your bananas. Like start to then like play with the universe to seed in these little manifestations.
And then that builds in the momentum and the belief, and then the continuing spiral.
Exactly.
And it's like when you start with the small stuff, you can continue to spiral up and up.
Yes.
Whereas you'd never go to the gym and say, I'm going to run 20 kilometers on the treadmill. If you'd never run, you'd be like,
I mean, okay, you do. You know you're going to be crippled the next day. You won't be able to get off the toilet. Yeah.
Thanks for that visual. It's true. You'd never do that. You'd never ever do something that ridiculous. So why do it with this as well?
Yeah.
And you need to show up and take effective action. And your action is not, you know, being in your pajamas all day, walking around the house going, everything's going to show up at my doorstep. Everything's going to show up at my doorstep. Unless you're telling me you have a lot of money, you can pay for things to show up at your doorstep, then by all means that can happen. But like you've got to go out, you've got to connect, you've got to set the intention, you've got to get out of your head, out of your narrow fields of focus. You've got to be interested.
Understanding of who you are and what you are. And I think, and we could talk about this, and I think we'll be back next week for anyone that loved this and wants more. But I want to wrap this. I don't want to wrap this because I want to talk all day, but I want to respect people's time and energy and moving forward, and yours especially, Helen. I know it always starts to get late in Dubai, and you get right out of juice.
It's 8 o'clock and I'm like starting to yawn. I'm like, oh,
I love it. You're such an early morning bunny. That's why I think if I have any message today, I want to share. Just really look at who you are. Like really, really look at who you are and look at all the things that you've done. Look at the heart that you have. Look at the people that you've helped. And because I bet you have no concept, every single, and maybe I'm saying this to just women right now, but it's men too, because they're so far from their hearts right now. They're so far from their sacred heart, from their grounding of like, you know, being in all of the things that they are. And we have this vision of ourselves that is so different from what we truly are. Like a woman would take a job application and it would have 10 things. They could say, I could do 3 of those things. And then they wouldn't apply for it because they're like, I don't have the other set. The man might say, well, I'm just going to go for it anyway. We have such a dysmorphia. And I say this to the people that are looking to change careers, people that are looking to do something differently. Everything you have done is applicable to a different industry, to a different concept. It doesn't fucking matter. Like if you've managed the soccer run, you know how to manage people. If you've schedules and you know, if you're re-entering the work after being a mother, if you've done anything for yourself, you know how to do everything. We already know. Already know.
And it's owning that, and really, it's really owning that and knowing that you can handle that. Because I would say that a lot of people can show up to work behaving like a toddler. So the fact that you've managed the football team run means that you're more than capable of handling difficult situations where people's emotions are getting the better of them. And I would argue that the rationale of children is less rational than an adult. So therefore you'd be able to navigate that situation. But it's often, you know, the stigma that those women have. I've managed women who have been, you know, part-time mums, and they've been the best addition to the teams ever.
Yeah.
because like their focus, they want to get high value return for what they do.
Yes.
And it's peace and quiet. Like it's uninterrupted time. It's peace and
They
quiet
just get
time.
stuff done.
Yeah, they're like machines. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I really invite anyone that's listening to spend a few minutes after this or later in the day, whenever the hell you want, or don't do it, but really write on a piece of paper all the things that you are, that you've done, that you bring to this world, because I'm telling you, you are underestimating yourself on such a level. It's an atrocity, and that is this dysmorphia of who we all are as people, you know, and as humans, and how we can be in relationships with each other, and also be really honest on the other side too, of the people that you have in your life. Are they what you think they are? Have you made up some, you know, thing about them, put them on a pedestal, or made them out to be? I'm not saying those men that I attracted weren't good people or good humans, but they certainly were not what I thought they were, and what I continue to believe. And then what I punished myself or thought badly upon myself because I couldn't achieve their love or their commitment, when really actually they weren't on a same level of value and fullness to even like see me. Again, this is the perfect example. We've talked about this a couple times. There's a mango tree, right? I'm loving this analogy. Thank you to my lovely friend for sharing this. You know, I might be on level 7 and I'm looking out the window of this mango tree, and I see the fruit and the trees and the sun shining on it, and it's whistling in the wind. Like, I see all of the fullness of what that tree. But these men, and maybe other people in your life, or even this dysmorphic version of you, is on level 3, and all they see is the trunk. They know that that tree has mangoes. They know that that tree is beautiful. They know the breeze is up there and shining, but they can't see it. And so there's this element that we lower ourselves, or we take away from ourselves. We forget who we are to try and get that, because that will make us feel safe, or that will make us feel great. But then all there is this gap. And what we're doing is we're closing that gap. We're closing that gap of the dysmorphia with ourselves, on the dysmorphia with our relationships that aren't bringing the worth to us.
It's like, what are you doing to fit in? Where are you making yourself small to fit in with who you have around you?
Absolutely.
And then, is that really what you want to be doing? And how can you continue to grow and evolve with those people in your life? So there's this, why, who have I dysmorphed myself into to fit in with who is in my life? And know that that process of letting go is a process. And with letting go, there's grief as well, right? Because you have these amazing experiences with these people, and then you go into maybe a bit of an unknown, and you're like, okay. And then you're going into this space of where you're accepting yourself for who you are, and you're pushing the boundaries of the identity. And then you fall into, or then miraculously, the new people that match the real identity kind of come into your life.
Yes. And the vibration, let's bring back that, the vibration that you hold about yourself is what you will attract. I mean, this is just, again, a universal law. This is not Toni making this stuff up. And I think until you see yourself for who you are, you won't bring in the people that you desire. And so closing that gap and being very honest with yourself. And like I said, truth heals. It's like a sting of a bee sting. You know, it heals a lot quicker than dragging it out. And we're really, you know, the veils are becoming very thin, however you speak, you know, it's getting harder and harder to lie to ourselves, and harder to bullshit ourselves. And so for anyone that's kind of coming across me, you'll know that I speak about this a lot, because I think we can't bullshit each other and ourselves anymore. And I won't do it to myself. And I have a lot of, like, I want to say, I have felt moments of embarrassment and shame over the people that I called in and that I couldn't see, and I wanted them so desperately. But I also know they were there to show me, and they were there to help me raise. And this ascension that we're on needs people to kind of kick us up and kick us down so that we can be propelled forward, you know. And the exponential growth that we get from telling the truth is beyond, you know, beyond anything you can pay for, beyond anything you can, you know, expect someone else to show you. But you could do this work yourself, and it's very special. So I love you.
Thanks, Toni.
I love you. I love you.
That was a lot of fun. It's great. It's great to be back.
I know.
It's great to be back.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And if anyone has any questions and you want to throw them in the chat, feel free. We are committed to turning over every rock and yeah, and learning about ourselves, because the only way also we can learn about ourselves and share it with other people is how we all raise each other, you know, as women, to reflect back. I think it's also something too, like maybe there's I don't know if duty is the right word, but I think there's an invitation, like if you meet another woman or another human, reflect back who they are, show them and tell them what you see in them. Like, you're an incredible musician, you're a super talented creative, you're beautiful with your family. Like, really give them those compliments and show them and reflect it back, so that we can all kind of tune into each other. And you know, I certainly know that, like, people can tap into me to help raise their consciousness because I'm grounded in who I am and what I'm doing. And I think that we are the light workers, that we're seeding ourselves in all of these different places in the world so that we can do this work together. It's not something I can do alone, and it's not something that is even joyful to do alone. It has to be shared, and throw it out there, pass it on. Exactly. It's the ripple effect. Amazing. Yes, indeed. I'm sure someone wrote about that. Amazing. I love you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Helen, for always being so honest, and also I love that you just ask me stuff straight to the bone, and I think it's very I think, you know, the feedback that I'm getting is that you asking me these questions and me like really answering this in real time and being very real about my own situation is very helpful for people. You know, I continuously get told showing people how I raise my consciousness and how I work through these things is how we help people. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Amazing. I love doing it as well. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone. Love you. Thank you so much for coming. And we love you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.